So something exciting happening at Restoring Hope is we're working towards becoming contracted with Children's Division. So I have Staci Owen here to talk about that today, and I'm Daniel Coffey hosting the Hopeful Connection.
Yes,
Thanks
thank you.
for coming.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about that Children's Division contract and what services we'll be able to provide with that.
Yeah. So I think that it gets a little bit confusing at Restoring Hope because we already provide services to Children's Division kiddos. So right now, what we currently have is we have the Department of Mental Health contract, and Children's Division is allowed to piggyback on that contract for child-specific contracts. So we can provide to a very narrow group of kids that are in Children's Division's custody that are eligible or receive services through the Department of Mental Health.
So only children with certain diagnoses, essentially.
Yes. Intellectual or developmental disabilities. They have to be have a qualifying diagnosis and have multiple limitations in order to get those services.
Okay.
So that's what we currently have. So we have a lot of Children's Division kids that we already provide supports to. But what we are wanting to jump into is having a direct contract with Children's Division. So over the past several years, we have these cases that we feel really are, like our hands are tied on, that we have kids that either their IQ is just a little bit too high, so they can't quite qualify for the DMH services, or they don't have just the right diagnosis. And so they end up falling through the cracks of services because they need more elevated supports than what typical foster care can provide, but they don't have the right diagnoses and pieces to qualify through DMH.
Sure.
So we want to fill those gaps. We want to work directly with Children's Division to obtain that contract so that we can utilize those services that we can provide to be able to have more of an impact on kids in services that don't just have that ID and DD diagnoses.
Sure. Okay. So what do those services look like that we will be providing?
Yeah. So I think there's a long list of services that we can provide through Children's Division. Where we're going to start is through Therapeutic Foster Care. Therapeutic Foster Care aligns very similar to our model of host home services. So there are a few differences, but for the most part, it looks the same day to day for the family and the individual. So we will be starting with Therapeutic Foster Care. And then as we get into it, I would say that it would be likely that we will expand into other services. But until we get there, I'm not sure our team knows what services yet.
Okay, so what is that process of getting that contract and getting being prepared to provide the therapeutic foster care service?
Yeah, so just like anything, it's a lot of paperwork, application up front with Children's Division. So they have a 2-part process where we do a child placing license, get approved through that to then move to the contract side for the therapeutic foster care.
Okay. So there's lots of work going on behind the scenes, lots of conversations around the Children's Division contract. What is your take on the energy around that at Restoring Hope?
Yeah. So I think you're right. They're all internal discussions at this point, but I think it's been building over the past several years. So depending on who the program manager is, where the region is, even some of the host homes, they have the individuals, they have the kiddos that have really impacted this decision. So we have one kid specifically that I was pretty involved in the St. Louis region that absolutely needed our host home services, but couldn't quite qualify. And so he had to leave Restoring Hope Services, couldn't qualify, but there wasn't another system set up for him because he needed all the same things. His IQ was like 71. And so the managers, the host homes, they have the stories of why this makes sense. And so the energy, I feel like, is really just that it's time, and our impact can just really expand from what we're already doing in the children's division world.
For sure. Do you have any idea how many kids there are out there that are falling through the cracks that we can potentially meet the needs for?
So I don't know specifically like how many the numbers are as far as that qualify through the therapeutic foster care. I know, and the numbers are always delayed in what they look like through the state. But I know at one time, like peak COVID, there were over 15,000 kids in the state of Missouri that were in foster care services. I know since then it has declined, but I think it's somewhere around 12 or 13,000 kids that are in foster care services. So obviously there's a piece of them that would qualify for the therapeutic. I know when I first met with Children's Division back in the early spring, one thing that stuck out to me was she said, I have 70 kids right now that I don't have a therapeutic foster home for, that I would send you today if you had the licensing. So I think there are tons of those kids that need what we already provide. This just gives us an avenue to be able to support them.
Yeah. So what is the timeline from where we're at today for that first placement through the therapeutic foster care?
Yeah. So like I said, there's pieces that have to be done. I really look for us to be ready by early 2027 to be able to place our first kids through the therapeutic foster care side.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
This year's flown by already. We're already halfway through almost. So I'm sure it'll continue to fly by.
Yep.
And we'll be there before we know it.
Yeah. I mean, we're halfway through. Mm-hmm. We're going to get really busy with developing all the processes and systems for the CD side to be able to gain approval to get going early 2027.
So what are the differences between therapeutic foster care and host home services?
Yeah. So with the therapeutic foster care, it is a lower level of support than what a host home is. And so our kids that are in a host home setting or that qualify for a host home setting, a lot of them have already been through the therapeutic foster care. So some of it may be that it's not quite as high a level of needs, but then it also may be that there's different diagnoses that qualify for them for that. So for example, diabetes. So that individual diagnosis alone doesn't qualify them for DMH services or for a child-specific contract. It could qualify them through the therapeutic side. So the supports would look different because that therapeutic foster home may be learning more on insulin and tracking of levels and, taking them to doctor's appointments to manage the diabetes, where that looks a little bit different than maybe a diagnosis that they have on the host home side, but the supports can look very similar.
Sure. So very, very individualized on each case.
Yep. Very individualized. The training, we're going to try to mirror it as close to the same as possible because we know that we have several homes that will want to be dually contracted with both the therapeutic side and the host home side. I will say Children's Division, they have a little bit more of a heightened focus on trauma-informed care, suicide prevention, mental health awareness. So I think some of those trainings may look a little bit different, but I feel like will be very beneficial, for the homes that go through those trainings. Yeah.
Do we have any current host homes who are already providing therapeutic foster care, maybe through a different organization?
We do. We have, I would say we have quite a few that are dually contracted that provide host home services for us or relief services for us, but then also have a contract through children's division through a different agency for the therapeutic side. I also think that that's how we have inherited a lot of our host homes or relief homes, that they may have had a kid through therapeutic foster care and then they needed a little bit higher level of care, or they aged out of children's division. And so then they were able to maintain them by flipping them over to a DMH placement. So I think that a lot of our families have been on the therapeutic foster care side, are currently still, or been something very similar.
Okay. So they can definitely do both.
Yes. Yep.
How exciting.
Our homes are really going to have a lot of the flexibility for what works for their homes. So most of our host homes that are at Restoring Hope, if they're full, they focus on adults, they're happy with the services that they have currently set up for their home, they will have to do nothing different. They can continue providing just host home services. No changes would be needed. Then we have some homes that are already dually contracted. We could potentially have their therapeutic foster care contract as well. Or we may have some families that they may be through the host home side, but they may also want to become contracted on the therapeutic foster care, which is completely fine too. We will have a process for that and be able to be pretty individualized with what each home is wanting to do.
Yeah. And so I know with children's division, just in general, there's a lot of conversations about aging out and falling through the cracks and things like that. We hear stories all the time. The idea behind a lot of the therapeutic foster care cases will be that they will remain in that therapeutic foster care placement through that children's division contract. And as they reach the age of 21, then we will, if it's possible, flip them over to host home services so they can maintain their same placement, same organization, that kind of thing.
Yep. So I think that we will absolutely have those situations where they will flip over to a host home at 21 or even, potentially earlier. But we will also have cases that we are looking toward a transition. So for some of our individuals through therapeutic foster care, they're going to be a lot more independent than what we may be used to at Restoring Hope. Yeah. So it'll be looking at what does that next step for them look like. It may be transitional housing. It may be getting them set up with more independent living. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for growth for Restoring Hope for us to learn and expand what that will potentially look like. Because I think right now we have the filter of the individuals we already support, but there's a whole nother level of individuals that they need supports in that type of setting, but they potentially can get to the point that with the right services, they could transition to become more independent.
Yeah, that's exciting. And that'll be a fun challenge to take on for all the managers, familiarizing ourselves with all those resources.
Absolutely.
That'll be great. Okay, so right now, a lot of our referrals are coming from Department of Mental Health, support coordinators, that kind of thing. So in the future, when we have this therapeutic foster care license, let's say we get a referral through Children's Division and we get them placed, they're in their home, we're getting to know them, and we identify that they could use a higher level of support than what that therapeutic foster care allows us to provide. What does that look like? Yeah.
So I think that's going to be a huge piece of that therapeutic foster care service. So right now, even on the child-specific contract side, our placement team works directly with Children's Division, the RCSTs of who qualifies. I do think that we will have a lot of children that we receive referrals on that will end up qualifying, but they don't have the services in place yet. So a lot of the referrals we're receiving or will receive will be emergency placements or emergency removals that we need to establish housing and food, shelter first, and then be able to build the services around them that will make them most successful. So for a kid that's first coming into care, they likely haven't been receiving the evaluations and the support they need to be able to justify that child-specific contract. So I do think that a huge piece of that therapeutic foster care side will be getting those services in place to determine where they need to be. Can we maintain them through the therapeutic foster care side? Or do they have the qualifying diagnoses and supports to be able to move to a child-specific contract?
Sure. So you touched on the emergency placements and that kind of thing, but earlier you had mentioned that there at one point was 70 kids who were kind of awaiting a therapeutic foster care placement. Are those kids currently just in a traditional foster home?
Some are. When I asked that, I said, where are those kids at right now? And they said children's division offices, jails, hospitals, hotels. And then it's up to children's division to then staff a lot of those places, which children's division is an agency. They're not staffing. And so then it's pulling away from their supports, what they should be doing. I know we, even on the child specific side on the host homes, we go meet kids in hotels that CD workers are just staffing 24 hours a day. We have kids that are essentially just living in a hospital because it's a safe place.
There's nowhere else to go.
And there's nowhere else to go. So I think we will be meeting them where they're at to then be able to establish all the things that we need to establish for them, such as housing, schooling, medical care, all the supports that'll make them successful long-term.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting too, to see, we may get an individual that we think right off the bat, okay, this person would definitely qualify for a host home, but then we put those services in place and maybe they don't need that level of support once their basic needs are met.
Absolutely. I think that will happen because they're going to, present with a lot of unmet needs and trauma initially. And I think that we'll be able to see a lot of growth very quickly for those individuals once they do have all their needs met. Yeah,
that's exciting. I'm excited to be a part of it. I know the rest of the team is really excited to be a part of it too, and our homes as well. So it's going to be great.
Yep. And I know one of the things I hear, what's it going to change for what we already do?
Yep.
I don't think it's going to change anything. I think it's just going to allow us to have an even bigger impact on kids in care that maybe we aren't able to have that impact currently. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks for joining me today and sharing all this exciting information about the upcoming Children's Division contract. For those that are interested in being involved with the therapeutic foster care, stay tuned. And as soon as we have information on what that process will look like for you, we will share that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for joining and learning more about it. And I look forward to sharing more by fall and into early 2027.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.